We talked a little about the fact that a lot of the country is reopening, and there's been such a large magnifying glass on sports, which some people saw coming. I did not. Who will play, who won't play. As we're doing this interview, I've heard Major League Baseball is inching closer, even after hearing they weren't going to. And we here on the show have reported on Major League Soccer's practices and what they're allowing. What have you heard about what's going on with men's soccer and women's soccer as far as getting back out there and creating something that doesn't sound like a sci-fi movie?
Well, the first to actually get out will be NWSL, which is the Women's Professional League. They're actually going to kick off on June 27th, and they're out of Utah, where they're going to have a 30-day, they're going to call it the Challenge Cup. It's a 30-day tournament, and they'll have group play and then eventually, knockout stages and then a winner at the end of it. MLS, of course, is also getting back together, as they announced recently, in Orlando. And I think the reason NWSL got out of the gate so fast is it's 9 teams, right? It's a smaller league. It's easier to try and put all the protocols in place and the procedures in place and really keep a bubble around that group. Whereas when you're dealing with MLS and 26 teams and having all of them there and NBA's there as well, I mean, it's a much larger venture, I think, than what NWSL was doing. So NWSL is going to be the first out of the gates, which is great. Not all national team players, I think, are going to play. Like Megan Rapinoe recently.
Yeah, she said she's dropping out, right?
Yeah, she's not playing. And I think you'll find a couple more national teamers won't play. But it looks like, because there were quite a few on the fence earlier, and they still could a day before this even starts say, I'm not comfortable based on what they see in Utah. And there's, of course, going to be no repercussions, they say, U.S. Soccer and the national team for if they want to drop out. But I think you will see most of the national team playing.
I mean, I've not hidden my feelings about this on the podcast. I am very concerned about the health of athletes. I know there's been some issues recently with the Dallas Cowboys. The WWE has been having outbreaks. Auburn, Mississippi State, Alabama. I feel uncomfortable with players signing these waivers that we're hearing about in their contracts about if they get sick. And I look to someone like you, someone who's done so much work for human rights and the correct thing to do. What is your feeling on getting back to sports?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one. I get we want to see people playing and we want them back out there and we have to return to some sense of normalcy. But you also look at, a month ago, we thought that you got to July and we would be seeing, obviously, the curve not just flatten, but go down. And what are we seeing in this country, right? Is that you have a lot of states right now when we're starting to open things up, and especially with a variance of standards and regulations and rules and how people are dealing with it, that, you're starting to see the numbers rising, which concerns me, honestly. And I think that's where, you talk to NWSL, they say, look, we talked to 15 doctors. We've had all of these consultants. We have all of these procedures. We're doing all of these precautions to make sure that we're staying in one place. They're calling it their village. And there is really a bubble around them, and they have procedures when people test positive and all these things. But at the same time, everyone's different in how they approach that, right? Like my comfort level may be very different than another person. And so I think the most important thing that the players secured was the right to say at any time, I'm not comfortable. Right. And if I'm not comfortable, I'm not going to get my salary docked. I'm not going to get cut. I'm not going to have these repercussions. And I think that's an important piece of it, obviously, because of the variance of comfort levels for that. So I think about if I was in that moment, and when people say, well, why isn't Megan Rapinoe playing? I say, why are we judging that? That's her decision to make, right? And who knows what's happening outside of our lives with other people, right? So I'm never going to judge that at this time. I really think it's a personal thing. I don't know, honestly, what I would have done. I would have needed to seen all the procedures and protocols and all of those things to have some level of comfort, I think.